Football season is here, and it's time to bet with MyBookie. Use promo code Gators and double your first deposit. Your winning season begins today, only at MyBookie.
Gators Breakdown, because there's never a dull moment in Gator Nation.
The Gators Breakdown podcast is ready to go. I'm your host, David Waters, and you can find me on Twitter at GatorDave_SEC. Will Miles is not on this episode. We'll hit him back next week. He'll be back on Gators Breakdown. So we'll be joined later this episode by Denny Thompson of 6 Points Quarterback Training and 1010 XL, the show, the Sports Den there. He trained Anthony Richardson, Carson Beck here in Jacksonville. So we'll get plenty of talk about the Florida Gator quarterback position, get a storyline from the Georgia quarterback position as well, since the whole Jamie Newman thing happened last week, and the quarterback battle that's now happening in Athens. So Denny can share a lot of his thoughts and from a quarterback perspective eyes of what he's able to bring to the table there. So a lot of quarterback talk here. Kyle Trask, Emory Jones, Anthony Richardson, Carson Beck, JT Daniels, all that stuff for Florida's main rival in Georgia too, since that kind of seems to be one of the main headlines that we're looking at in college football, SEC, and just a Florida rival in general. So lot to discuss there, and a lot of good insight from Denny. So look, and I'm also joining you here right after this is recording on Tuesday, September 8th, and around 1:30. So on the heels of Dan Mullen and his press conference right after the second scrimmage. And we'll get into all that here on this episode of Gators Breakdown. But before we do, remember, you can find some Gators Breakdown merchandise. ebay.com/str/Gators Breakdown. You can get the link in the description as well, but a lot of new Gators Breakdown merchandise out there for you to support us with, if you so please. If you do, thank you very much. If you don't, a listen is good enough. So, but if you want to show some more support, get you Gators Breakdown gear once again at ebay.com/str/Gators Breakdown. And before we get into this episode, remember, you can find Gators Breakdown on news4jax.com/Gators Breakdown. There you'll find all the Gators Breakdown episodes and News4Jax coverage of the Gators. Please share, rate, and review the show. Subscribe on YouTube, and if you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button. That really helps us out. Or subscribe to Gators Breakdown on your favorite podcast platform, and follow Gators Breakdown on social media, on Twitter and Facebook at Gators Breakdown. And as we said, this is coming to you on the heels of Dan Mullen, his press conference after the second scrimmage that was held on Monday night, Labor Day night. Here we go. We'll discuss what he had to say and some kind of storylines from the second scrimmage. Scrimmage 2 was good, Mullen said, but it will be the last scrimmage of this 2020 preseason. He said hasn't been able to watch a whole lot of it so far, but what little he's seen, still some sloppiness that they have to get corrected. And look, guys, I mean, that's going to be expected. We all watched, for the most part, that BYU Navy game, and we saw a lot of sloppiness from the Navy side of things. BYU looked smooth, like a smooth running machine, but the Navy was way behind, and you kind of saw what happened there with that. So there's going to be some sloppiness right now. And plus, it's still, a little under 3 weeks for a game, so to be expected, I think. No worry, I don't think. But, this is what he says. Lack of playing football is what you see in terms of errors and mistakes, and not a lot of football being played. They're still learning. They're still going through the motions of a long layoff. So they're getting, Mullen did say he saw some good football and some improvement, but he'd just like to be further along right now. But overall, pleased with the guys. I really like some of the effort that they've played out there with. And he said guys are playing hard and trying to play the game. And that's really right now what you need, what you can ask for. So maybe some of the mental aspects of it need to be cleaned up, but at least the effort is there for now. Get the mental aspect part of it cleaned up before these next 3 weeks, and I think Florida's okay. I'm not taking this as a big sign of weakness or anything like that heading into the season, but because look, he did say the play was higher level than the first scrimmage, but mistakes are the little mental things. So more consistency, but not at the consistency where you want to be to go play an SEC game right now. That's exactly what Mullen said. So just want a little bit more consistency. But if they were to play a game tomorrow, he wouldn't feel good about the consistency level for the Gators right now. But look, of course, I'm not going to shy away from it. He was asked about the injuries. There's rumors are out there, have been floating around about an offensive player being injured. The rumor is offensive line, but Mullen would not dive into it. No surprise there. He would not name anyone as far as injuries go after the second scrimmage. He would only say a couple guys were banged up, and they'll find out more as the week goes on. So, if you're out there on social media, on message boards and stuff, of course, it's all out there. We'll probably find out through some back channels. There's no really confirmation right now out there of putting it out of who actually if anybody was injured there, but who's putting it out there is a pretty good trusted source there. So just kind of be on the lookout for it there. But I'm not trying to jump the gun or anything like that. And if it comes out there, of course, we'll discuss it either on another episode this week or just wait till next week. But we'll see when everybody else finds out about the potential injury that was in the second scrimmage. And then right before we wrapped up, Mullen did say Trask got a little more work in the scrimmage as well, more work than he did in the first scrimmage, but he had a little bit of an off day, and I'm not sounding the alarm there either. And Mullen kind of explained it. They're putting so much more on his plate right now, and basically, kind of see what he can handle. He's going to be able to handle more. They'll simplify things. They'll pare stuff down as we get closer to games and getting into a game plan, doing the things that he likes to do. Talking with him and seeing the things that he likes to do. They'll make it easier going forward for him, but just a little bit of an off day, they said, with so much on his plate there. But as we move forward, 3 weeks before your first game, a little under 3 weeks before your first game, you'll start paring it down, doing the things he likes to do, especially with all these new receivers and stuff like that, and they'll get it going. But really sharp in the first, not as sharp in the second, but nothing to really worry about there. So, but he did say, he's improved the speed of how he goes through things. And Trask spends a lot of extra time in meetings, and he's able to do that because of being a grad student. He can spend more time in the coaches' offices and in the film room and watching tape and getting better in the mental aspect of football. So, and they're going to give him a lot more freedom, as he's kind of mentioned before in some of these press conferences, giving him a lot more freedom to do some checks at the line of scrimmage. So, probably the biggest headline so far in the presser after the scrimmage here is one Kadarius Toney, and this tweet kind of blew up when I put out there what Mullen was talking about in this press conference to do with Kadarius Toney, and Mullen says Kadarius Toney has really developed into a wide receiver. He's worked he's worked to learn the position. He's taken such a huge step forward in becoming a wide receiver now, not just the gadget, get it to type of player, being an every down wide receiver. And he thinks he's taken some huge steps forward in that regard. And look, to me, I had a wide receiver conversation with Neil Blackman on Twitter on Monday. And look, that's the big question for this offense for me, or one of the big questions for this offense for me is, given how Florida has to replace a good bit of the wide receiver core from last year, Toney's a big part of that, or it needs to be a big part of that, can be a big part of that. He's still going to have his electric plays. Needs some more consistency there, not getting tackled for a 7, 8, 10-yard loss. But I still think he brings more good than bad to the table. He can bring even more good to the table by becoming that true wide receiver. So he's still going to have his electric plays, but can he be part of the offense where defenders have to defend his routes, and he leaves them guessing as to what's coming? And, not just the trick, gadget, get it to sweep, screen type of player. So I believe overall this group can be more explosive. But if this group's going to live up to last year in some ways, then who can be relied on to catch that clutch 3rd and 7 pass to keep the chains moving? Like I said, I think there's more explosiveness here with this wide receiver core. Maybe some more deep balls, deep passes, especially with some help from the offensive line and run game. I think that part of the wide receiver core can be there. But I still don't know who's going to be relied on 3rd and 7 to go catch a pass like Van Jefferson would or Freddie Swain would. Besides Kyle Pitts, that's my biggest question for this wide receiver core. So Kadarius Toney, he can help there, and then if he can become that every down wide receiver, then that's a good sign here. If Tony can help there, it's a big testament to him and the development of Billy Gonzalez, the wide receiver coach. We know Billy Gonzalez can coach up at that position. Go look at the NFL this past weekend and Gator wide receivers who were drafted and some who were picked up as free agents or practice squad players. The development of that position is not in question. Can Tony take it upon himself to take that next step? Dan Mullen's statement there is encouraging. So we got to see it, of course. Everybody wants to see it, not just be talk. But I think Dan Mullen coming out and saying that is a pretty good statement there, and it's encouraging moving forward for Kadarius Toney. One other player, just because I followed him a lot because he was here in Jacksonville, and I really wanted to kind of see, what his progress would be. And someone asked about, one Travis Johnson, true freshman cornerback for the Gators, and Mullen did say he is playing star like expected. Most of us expected to play him that role, or him to play in that role, and that's where he's at. Right now, they're trying to simplify some things for him because he plays hard. He's physical. Mullen said he really showed that part of his game in the scrimmage of how hard he plays, how physical he is, great athleticism, great effort in the scrimmage, and the tackling. And we all remember going back and watching his film from Bartram Trail of Headhunter and how he likes to go tackle and how he likes to go hit. And Mullen said, that's something, of course, that they saw in recruiting. So great physicality, and the big thing there, if he's going to play star, he's also got to cover like a corner. You can't just hit. You can't just be this big time going to go lay the wood on somebody and not do the other part of your job. So we all know he's a very fast player, and he can fit right here in that nickel star role because he can cover like a corner. And that's what they look for in that star position. So that's why they call it a star. And that's what we've heard, for the last couple of weeks with that position in all these press conferences with Dan Mullen and Todd Grantham. And he can do all that. And Mullen says it's hard to do all that, but he's a physical guy who fits that mold and really can play that and can play corner if he needed to. But with his physicality and his cover skills, they like him in that star role. So I think that's very encouraging for Florida too. As I don't think he'll be counted on much this year. If he is, it could be a really good sign that he's boosted his play to get up to that point. But with Marco and Brad Stewart working in that position now as well, and Amari Burney and some other players, they'll get the first crack at it. And so you hope it's not a Travis Johnson out there because of necessity. That if he's out there, it's because they like his growth as a true freshman. He's out there trying to make some plays, make some ball plays, hopefully in some blowout scenarios. But in the 10-game SEC schedule, we'll see if that can be the case here. So that's it for kind of looking back at the what Dan Mullen had to say about Monday's scrimmage, and a little bit of notes there about some of the players who took part and some of their growth this preseason, as in one Kadarius Toney. So before we get on to our interview with Denny Thompson, everybody, look, it's time. It's winning season, and winning season returns at MyBookie. Winning season means doubling your first deposit. Winning season means Survivor, Super Contest, and Squares. At MyBookie, winning season means hitting all your parlays and props with your feet up, watching your team trounce their rivals. It's time to celebrate some football, and it's time to bet on some football. Invest in your intuition, use promo code Gators, and double your first deposit. New players get up to $1,000 in free play, designed to add more excitement to the sports you love and the games you bet. From live betting to championship futures, every play you want to make is waiting at MyBookie. It's simple. Make your picks, win big, collect your cash. Use promo code Gators and double your first deposit. Your winning season begins today, only at MyBookie. And joining me now here on Gators Breakdown is Denny Thompson, quarterback trainer and owner of 6 Points Jack's Quarterback Training, and also co-host of the Sports Den on 1010 XL with James Coleman. Denny, it's been a little while, man. How you holding up through COVID in the spring and summer and everything that's going on with all the questions surrounding the game of football?
Yeah, I think I'm like everybody else. It's just kind of blurred into one big beating 2020 has, but it's been good. I mean, it feels wrong to say this, but this has been amazing for the quarterback business. We, at one point had over 40 college quarterbacks in here training during the quarantine, and so it's been interesting. It's been fun from a training perspective. but it's at the same time, it's been, heartbreaking for a couple of our guys who aren't having seasons. And then, just like everybody else, just stressful to figure out, is there going to be a season? And I think we're still trying to figure out, is there going to be a season? How long of a season, a full season? Like, what all is going to happen? So there's always that in the back of your mind, that really just makes you kind of feel for these guys and how hard they've worked all off season to get to this, to have that uncertainty. And it's something we're talking to them about, pretty regularly. And how do you lead through that? How do you function through that? And so far so good on the guys that are getting a chance to play. So I'm just like everybody else, Dave. I'm hopeful, but at the same time, I'm probably managing my expectations a little bit.
Absolutely. Same here. Hopefully it all goes smooth and clear. But you got your eyes in a lot of places. The ACC and Big 12 will be kicking off their seasons this weekend. You got quarterbacks all across the country. Of course, we'll get into and discuss Anthony Richardson at Florida, Carson Beck at Georgia. But let our listeners know, with college football basically kicking off in earnest this coming up weekend, what all you've been doing with 6 points and all the quarterbacks that'll be out there all across the country this coming up weekend.
Yeah, I mean, right now we've been focused, mainly on our high school guys. We have high school guys throughout the country as well that come in and train. And so we've been focused on them. But, now we're in the middle of a ton of competitions in college football, which that seems to be making a reappearance. If you think about the last, decade, there hasn't been a lot of competition. It's always been, here's our starter, here's our backup, wait your time. And then all of a sudden, the last couple of years, the first one I can think of was Jalen Hurts coming in as a freshman at Alabama and really just taking the competition, and then Tua taking it from him. And as Alabama always does, they set the trend. And so now everybody opens up camp with a quarterback competition, seemingly. And so we've got, I don't know, 20 guys in the middle of competitions that we should be hearing shortly on if they're going to be the guy or not. So we've been dialed into that, and it is exciting, and it's nerve-wracking. My wife makes fun of me on Saturdays because Saturdays and Sundays I am a nervous wreck watching these guys. But it's definitely a cool gig to have, and to get to spend so much time with these guys and see them develop and grow is pretty awesome.
All right, so let's shift the gears to Florida, and let's talk some Florida Gators and Florida Gator quarterbacks as well. And Denny, let's go back to last year. Kyle Trask comes in, Felipe Franks goes down. Kyle Trask comes in, lights the world on fire against Kentucky. That continues on throughout the rest of the season. With your quarterback trained eye here, what changed from Felipe Franks to Kyle Trask and the offense? I mean, we know Felipe Franks probably a little bit more of a successful runner. Kyle Trask gets hurt in that Auburn game, probably limits that part of the offense a little bit for Florida as well. But, from looking at it from a pure quarterback perspective, what changed from Felipe Franks to Kyle Trask and Dan Mullen running this offense?
I think you just hit the nail on the head. Dan Mullen changed. I think that's what changed. Is if you go back to 2 years ago, the phrase that Dan Mullen used as much as any was that Felipe was a willing runner. You remember that? Like,
Yep.
He used to say that all the time. And I think at times they tried to make Felipe something he wasn't. And they didn't do nearly as much of that with Kyle. And to Kyle's credit, Kyle got rid of the ball on time to the right place. So that makes it a little bit easier. But it seems like, especially early on, they let their athletes be athletes. They got the ball to him in space really quickly. If you go back and you look, Kyle made some plays, and if we're being honest, if you go back and I've watched a lot of the games again, Kyle got away with a couple of throws that on one hand you want to call it an amazing throw, on another hand when you look at the all 22, it's like, oh, why did he throw it there? But he made it work. He made it fit, and so I think he took some gambles and he got away with them. But I think more than anything, Kyle was prepared. He knew where to go with the ball. He knew, when to go there with it. And that really is what fits Dan Mullen and Dan Mullen's offense. It's really what Brian Johnson works so much on with those guys is knowing where you're going to go with the ball, get it there. And I just think they kind of took that run element out of the quarterback position and went more traditional Dan Mullen of, let's hand it off. If you've got to run, take off. And let's throw it down the field a little bit. And I think you saw it from the minute he came in against Kentucky, the ball started advancing down the field. a lot more. They hit the middle of the field a lot more, and it just opened everything up for that offense last year. So I think really the only thing that changed is maybe they simplified it early on and then realized, hey, we can put more and more and more in this guy's plate, and it became harder and harder to defend as the season went through.
Now, if we look at that, and you mentioned he got away with, probably with some of the throws there, but what improvement do you expect to see from Kyle Trask now that he is the starter? He is the guy who's going to take most of the number one reps, and he's going to prepare that way as the starting quarterback for the University of Florida. So what can he take from year one and improve upon to be an even better quarterback in year two?
Well, that's the crazy thing about him, right, is he didn't see live reps for years and was able to come in there and do that. And I tell, younger athletes and parents all the time that until you've made a significant amount of mistakes, you're not a real quarterback. And to see Kyle kind of navigate last year with very few mistakes was impressive. I think the biggest thing for him is now he's seen it. And it's not the speed of the game because he's been practicing with some of the fastest guys in NCAA football for the past, 4 years. But it's just having that experience and seeing the speed that everything is adjusted with, that adjustments are made. And I think the biggest thing for him moving forward is he and Brian Johnson and Dan Mullen are on the exact same page now. Is he understands the play calls coming in. They understand what he does well. Mechanically, he's really solid. So he's going to be an accurate guy. He's not going to be an up and down guy. And so the next big step for him, I think, is some of the checks at the line, is putting them into situations where the defense cannot be right, that he's able to make that read calmly and efficiently and quickly. And so I think for us as fans, what we're going to see is a much more fluid offense than what we saw last year. I go back to the LSU game when I'm talking about Kyle Trask. And Kyle Trask, he showed me something, but at the same time, it also showed me limitations. When LSU started to really button down, and if you remember, Kyle Trask went to Van Jefferson about 4 or 5 times in a row in that game. And for me, I went, well, wait a second. They're not playing an isolation game of Van Jefferson. That's Kyle taking his eyes straight to him and making that work. You don't have to see that this year. I think you're going to be able to see him come off of one read, get to another, come off of shallow, get to deep, and vice versa. Things like that maybe – most people wouldn't recognize last year, but it was certainly there that every now and then he had a comfort zone with Pitts and Van Jefferson that maybe this year he spreads the ball around, based on what the defense is doing instead of based on what the offense is doing, if that makes sense. Yeah,
and you're kind of going to where my next point was going to go. How much do you think he'll miss those receivers? And there's wide receivers all are on NFL rosters right now, the ones that were drafted. So that we already kind of knew how good they were, but they're proving their worth early on in NFL camps and heading into the season for their NFL teams right now too. Will he? You mentioned probably spread the ball out just a bit more with now we don't really know. Trevon Grimes is probably the number one true wide receiver. Kyle Pitts is, of course, going to be a top target as well, but a lot to figure out there at that wide receiver position.
Yeah, I've been consistent on this. I have zero worries about that position. There were some good players, and Van Jefferson was kind of my lot after last year of, okay, which Gator's going to have the most immediate impact? And it was Van Jefferson for me because he's so polished as a route runner, and I think that's why you saw Kyle favor him when they were playing, press man teams like LSU. But the receiver position to me, from a talent perspective, is as good as what they've been in a long time in Gainesville right now. The Henderson kid is legit, and I think the wild card in the whole thing is Kadarius Toney. Can he stay healthy? Can he stay on the field? Because when he's on the field, even if he doesn't have the ball, people know he's on the field. And you have to play a certain type of defense when he's on the field. And if you can get Grimes and Henderson's size and Pitt's size and Kadarius Toney's speed and some of these other guys' speed out there at the same time or in rotations, that is going to be hell for a defense, and it should open up your running game to a level that we haven't seen in Gainesville in quite some time.
And you mentioned that LSU game a couple of times, and you go back and look at that game, and the quarterback rotation was probably the best it had looked all season with Trask and Emory. And a quarterback rotation is delicate, and we've seen Mullen, of course, have success. Where everybody wants to go back to 2006 and how it worked with Leak and Tebow. When you look at Emory in the quarterback position at Florida, should he get more playing time? Should he have a chance to prove his arm a bit more, or is this a year where Kyle Trask is simply completely takes all the way over, and we don't get to see Emory until maybe more next year? How much should he play, in your opinion?
That's an interesting question, and I could go either way with this, but I'm going to say he's going to play more than he did last year. I think I know people listening are going, well, wait, if Kyle's hot, don't take him out of the game. And I understand that. That's a judgment call, and I promise you Dan Mullen knows that as well. But the simple fact of the matter is the more you can give a defense to prepare for, the more everybody becomes. And Emory is a really good football player. He brings things to the field that Kyle can't. And vice versa. Kyle does a lot of things that Emory is not in his skill set to do. So I think you're going to see Emory. I said this the other day, and people about jumped out of the chair where I was when I said it. It wouldn't shock me if you saw 15 to 20 plays of a different quarterback other than Kyle Trask in the game. And I'm not saying just Emory. I think Anthony's going to get some run too, kind of that Tebow package when he was a freshman as well. But I think it's something that if things are going well, that's what you want to see as a Gator fan, because when you play Georgia and that defense comes in to Jacksonville, you want that defense having to prepare for a couple different packages. I promise you, that is an NFL defense coming to Jacksonville. And the more they've got to prepare for, the less athletic, the less, what's the word I'm looking for? The less certain they can be about things, the more timid they're going to be playing. And that is an advantage that Florida has, that if you don't take advantage of it, you're really losing something there. And the other thing about Emory, if you go back and you look last year when Emory came in, the thing that impressed me, and I told him this offseason, he's not the biggest guy. Now, he's not small, but he's not the biggest guy in a quarterback room full of huge guys. Kyle Trask is massive. Anthony Richardson is massive. But the thing that Emory always did, even when he got hit behind the line, he fell forward. And he was a great runner from that aspect. It wasn't like, he got hit, he went down, he lost 5 yards. He always gained yardage. And so when you have that guy that just has that ability to not take a hit squarely, you get confidence in that guy. And I think that Brian Johnson and I think Dan Mullen has an extreme level of confidence in all three quarterbacks right now. And
let's go to that third quarterback who you know very well, Anthony Richardson from Gainesville, true freshman now at Florida, early enrolled. And we got to speak to the Dan Mullen and Brian Johnson last week on the media circuit here. So the word is he's picking things up pretty quick, and that's good considering there's been no spring practice as an early enrollee. Does that surprise you at all, and how quick he's picking things up?
No, he's one of the smartest kids I've ever been around in my life. And I think I told you that last year. The one attribute that he doesn't get enough credit for, because he's so athletic and he's got such a good arm, is what's between his ears. He is extremely intelligent and very coachable. And, he's one of the guys that'll text me and, after one practice, and he'll say, Coach, why is this happening? And he'll explain it to me. And then the next day it's fixed. Like it's just the kind of guy he is. He wants everything to be perfect. And so him picking everything up, I'd have had no issues about that. The only thing that I was a little bit uncertain of, because he didn't get a lot of playing time last year with the injury that he had in high school, was him just getting back on the football field and the speed of the game and all that kind of stuff. But that seems to not be a problem for him at all, even through bowl practice last year.
There you go. That's where I was going to go next. I know it was just a short amount of time he had with that, but how beneficial was that for him?
It was huge. It was absolutely huge. I think it let him know specifically what we needed to work on in the offseason was the biggest thing. As he got out there and he realized, okay, the balls I could fit in at Eastside, I'm not fitting in at Gainesville. And so it let us know exactly what we need to work on. And people think of, off-season quarterback training, they think of throwing the ball better or something like that. And that's a very small percentage of it. A lot of it is, what guys do with their eyes, what they're seeing, what they're looking at, things like that. And so it gave us an opportunity to really dig deep into that. And that's something that the whole coronavirus thing actually helped with our quarterbacks, is we were able to spend an extended period of time working on things like that, as well as mechanic work that we haven't been able to do in 2 years, because all these guys played a year, and the year before that they went to Elite 11 camps, they went to All-Star games and all this stuff. So it let us kind of reset that. And then at the college level, it almost was like rookie mini camp for them before the older guys reported. And I think if you talk to a lot of college coaches, they'll tell you that time was invaluable. Rarely do you get a chance to spend a week with the freshmen right before camp starts, getting everything installed with them. And so I think in a lot of ways, the freshmen, as long as they took care of their body and they continued to stay in shape, in a lot of ways, these freshmen are further along than what freshmen have been in the past, because of some rules that they were able to implement right before the season started.
And good. That's kind of where I did want to go with one point here. When you're working with somebody like Richardson, and he's been on campus for a bit, and now he gets to come work with you, are there specific things that you're working on with him that the Florida coaches want to see? Is it a balance of what you teach versus what they teach? And are you, and I don't even know if this is allowed, but are you in contact with them about things that Anthony or another quarterback at another school can work on?
Yeah, I mean, I text with the coaches, I'm going to say consistently, but that probably is too much. Occasionally. And it's, hey, how's he looking, all that kind of stuff. And so I'll get a little bit of feedback, but the feedback really comes from the player. The player knows, hey, coach, I'm uncomfortable with this concept, or I'm uncomfortable, when I throw this route, or, there's times where like Anthony came in, sometime, I guess I'm going to say it was April, maybe May, something like that. And it was, he hadn't thrown for a little while because Alachua County was locked down. And so it was more of, okay, let's spend 2 days, let's throw everything, and let's just visually see where you're at. And so then we kind of backtracked and said, okay, I think you can do this, this, and this a little bit better. So it really depends on the guy. That we've got very cerebral guys that like Anthony, who know what they need to work on. And so when they come in, there's a plan on their part of, hey, I want to work on this, this, and this. And so we tailor it around there. And then we've got other guys, like Joey Gatewood at Kentucky, who does everything really well. And it's, okay, we want to set an improvement schedule for this part of your game. Also stuff that I see, not as much things that he feels. So it really depends on the quarterback. But here's the thing about Anthony is such a anomaly in so many different ways, because yes, he's a 4.49 laser kid. I have witnessed that. Yes, he's 225 pounds and has zero fat on him. He looks like a 30-year-old grown man. But at the same time, like you've got to move past that and realize you are dealing with someone that has a football IQ as high as just about anybody that I've worked with. And so it's this neat thing. And the reason I'm so excited about him, frankly, is he pushes me as a trainer, because I know if I'm not on my game, he knows I'm not on my game.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that as a trainer, you come across these guys, and at the NFL levels, like the Josh Dobbs and Gardner Minshew's of the world, are very intelligent guys. You come across these guys that just make you better as a trainer, and Anthony's one of those.
So, SEC changes their schedule. It's a 10-game SEC schedule for SEC teams this year, and eligibility not counting against players this season. So that lends, me to ask the question. The schedule does get harder, but you also have a season now where guys can come in and the year won't count against them. So you kind of mentioned it and hinted at it earlier, but can you see a scenario with now, especially because this year not really counting against players, where Richardson can come in and have an impact?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're third and goal from the 2, I mean, it's going to be hard to have that guy standing right next to you and not put him in.
Yeah,
it really is. I mean, because he's got the pass threat as well, but he's a different dog, man. He's not going down at first contact. He's going to shake you. I just think I have not been told anything by the Florida staff at all. Anthony and I have talked about it a little bit, but he doesn't know. I just think, it's 3rd and 2, and that big old joker standing next to you, and the damage he's been doing, he's going to be in the game. It may only be 3, 4, 5 snaps, something like that. But yeah, I absolutely can see him. And by the way, the NCAA rule, the biggest overreach in sports history, by the way. absolutely absurd and like the dumbest thing I've heard in all the years that I've been working either in the sports business or in media. It's unbelievable. And 3 years from now, that's gonna go down as one of the biggest mistakes the NCAA's ever made.
In what ways, Denny?
Like it's you can't give everybody a free year that's getting a chance to play. It messes up the recruiting cycle.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to see a ton of decommitments. You're going to see it. It's not going to affect a school like Florida budgetary wise, but it's going to affect a ton of schools. And right now, as is written, the only people that aren't going to count against your scholarship limit in future years are the seniors this year. That's the only ones. So this freshman class you have that counts as another freshman class next year, and you've got 25 committed already this year. I mean, there's 47 guys out of an 85-person scholarship limit. It just makes zero sense. I don't understand the logic behind it. If you wanted to give the seniors an extra year, cool. If you wanted people to apply for a year not to count, cool. But to just blanket say this is a free roll for everybody is one of the dumbest things I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, I'm eager to see how coaches balance that. And as you said,
I can tell you right now, I've talked to, and nobody at Florida, but I've talked to other coaches who are like, what the hell are we going to do? But because here's the thing that people don't understand. Like when guys enter the draft early and they don't get drafted and we all get after the player going, why were you so stupid? It wasn't the player. The coach told him, look, you got to go. You're not going to get on the field. The guy behind you is better. Well, now you've got 4 years of that.
mm-hmm.
Now you've got 4 years of guys that you have to, as a coach, go to them and essentially cut them because your numbers aren't lining up. And now you've got a whole class of recruits that there was a pecking order of, okay, here's the plan. This guy's going to be a senior next year. We're going to develop you as a freshman, then you're going to play as a sophomore. Well, that's not happening anymore. Like it's just the I do not envy the coaches right now. I don't envy the recruiting. I don't envy with the decisions they have to make once football season's over. I don't know how the NCAA is going to make, when they're going to have to let these seniors declare or are they coming back or not before early signing day? Is there an early signing day? If there is an early signing day, that's a fraud. Like the whole thing is just classic NCAA, way overreacting to something.
Seen it too often. I've seen it too often. Denny, one more thing. You hit it on earlier, just about how Mullen was able to kind of cater to the development and the transition from Franks to Trask. But even going back to his first Florida stint as offensive coordinator, through his time at Mississippi State, and now his first 2 years at Florida, what is it that he does so well, and that he just seems to get the best out of his quarterback? It can be a drop back, it can be a dual threat, it can be a combination of it all. Just on the surface, though, what is it that Dan Mullen does so well that he's going to have success at the quarterback position?
A couple things. One, he's an elite level play caller, so he's always going to put his guys in great positions to make plays. But the behind the scenes work that I think Dan Mullen does with reads and with what I mentioned earlier of here's why I'm calling this play, of the understanding of this play comes in and here's why. Here's the situation. Here's what I'm seeing, and here's why we're running it. That is so big, and people think that happens at every place. It doesn't. It really doesn't. There's a lot of patience and there's a lot of work that goes into developing these quarterbacks. And you can look at guys like Dan Mullen and Ryan Day, and I don't know Lincoln Riley, but I'm going to put him in this. The other two, I know what they do. The reason they develop quarterbacks so well is because they spend so much time at that position. They've got, in Florida's case, Brian Johnson has been around Dan Mullen practically his entire professional life. He knows what Dan Mullen wants. And so it's basically two Dan Mullens coaching quarterbacks at all times. And so a play comes in, the play's going to work because Dan Mullen's got a reason he's calling it, and the quarterback knows why he's calling it, and there's options out of it. So if the defense all of a sudden rolls into a different coverage or a different front, quarterback knows what to do with the ball. There's a lot of moving parts, and it takes an intelligent quarterback to play for Dan Mullen. And once you get that intelligent and athleticism together, and Dan Mullen's system, like he can call anything he wants to call, and he's just got such a good feel for the game. It's a God-given ability to just be able to sit on the sideline because everybody has a game plan, but that game plan changes. And so you get into the game, and all of a sudden, if you have a good feel for what that defense is doing and what your offense does really well, and you can mesh those two at the snap of a finger, that's what makes you an elite level play caller, and that's what Dan Mullen does seemingly every Saturday. We've referenced the LSU games like 5 times just in the conversation, and if you go back and you watch that, LSU scored easily, right? I mean, they made it look easy.
Mm-hmm.
Florida kept up with them because of Dan Mullen. He kept finding things to dial up at the right time, and it was hard. It was not easy to drive down the field the way they were doing it. But you look at that game, and you just go, okay, that's a level of play calling that is reserved for very few.
And with all that being said, Denny, 2 double-digit win seasons at Florida for the first time in a decade. First time Mullen's done it in his career, 2 double-digit wins back-to-back. What's it going to take for him to break through? And you just kind of mentioned the LSU game again. And look, there's another side of the ball that has a lot to do with this as well. And Todd Grantham being the defensive coordinator and, kind of not doing so much to help Mullen against Georgia last year on 3rd down, and LSU the entire game there. Is it more about Mullen breaking through? Is there another aspect to it as far as the defensive side of the ball as well? What's it going to take for Mullen to kind of break through and lead a team to an SEC championship game?
Well, I think, I don't want to sound too homerish on this, or anti-homerish, I should say, but he's kind of already broken through.
Gotcha.
Because for the first time in a long time,
I guess I mean to more than in the league status. Yeah,
I got you, and I'm going to use this to explain my answers. For the first time in a long time, we're very confident.
Yep.
Going into a season, and last year we were the same, and that hasn't happened since Urban Meyer was there. And so I think that part's broken through. But here's the next step for Dan Mullen and the Gators is if you put their best 11 out every single week, their best 22. They're fine. He needs another year or two of development and recruiting to develop the depth that a team like Georgia or Alabama has, because that's really, when you're talking about that next level, which is SEC championship, college football playoffs, national championship, that is a survival of the fittest type of scenario. And so your 2s have to be just about as good as your 1s in every position. And I know there's no time or place to brag about Georgia on a Gators podcast, but if we're going to be realist, if Georgia loses an offensive lineman, do you think they've got a concern? No. They could lose 2, 3, and they're bringing guys in there that are going to play on Sundays. Same on the defensive side of the ball for Georgia, because Kirby's been there longer. I think that if he can stay healthy, this could be a breakthrough year for Florida and for Dan Mullen. But if he continues to do what he's doing, and don't pay attention to 24/7 recruiting rankings, trust the guy, because he's shown that he can be trusted when it comes to developing guys. If he can continue to get his guys that he wants in there, and he continue to develop, and Savage can continue to develop them, then a year, 2 years from now, we're going to be looking at a 2 deep, where at every position there's competition. And that's what they have at these other schools that Florida doesn't quite have yet, but is so much closer right now than they were 2 years ago.
And 2 aspects that, could lend itself to Florida being in a SEC championship game, college football playoff spot. 2 thoughts I want to get your 2 aspects I want to get your thoughts on before we let you go here. SEC game, SEC 10-game schedule. How does that affect Florida? And of course, all the Jamie Newman news last week at Georgia and the quarterback battle going on there. The 10-game schedule, what's going on at Georgia? What was your thought of Florida kind of before that, and has it changed since the 10-game schedule and the Georgia news?
No, the 10-game schedule I think lines up for Florida pretty well. I really like it. I think, LSU, who they were going to play anyway. I think when you lose, what they lost 20 of 22 starters and both coordinators.
It's ridiculous.
If they win 8 games and Ed Orgeron's coach of the year, no questions asked. None at all. So they're in my mind, they don't really factor in. The schedule really didn't do anything, because at the end of the day, if you lose more than 2, it's not a good season for the Gators.
Yeah. If
you lose 1 early and you still beat Georgia, you still accomplish your goal. So everything is on that Georgia game still, just like it was, with the prior schedule. So, and they're not a young team that needs the warm-up games or anything like that. So as an SEC fan, as a Florida fan, I love it. I want them to go to a 10-game conference schedule every single year. It's going to be hard to get away from this. Play 10 games, play your directional schools, play Florida State, and let's call it a day.
Yep.
So I absolutely love that. As far as Georgia and Jamie Newman, if you listen to the Sports Den, and most of you probably don't, but
if you're in Jacksonville, you should, or you can stream it. There we go.
Well, if you're really bored at night, yeah, you probably should. But that's something that we've been talking about since April. Of why would Jamie Newman play? Like, it doesn't make any sense for him to play. He's got this inflated draft grade. I don't even know where that came from. And I'm not sure it's from the NFL, by the way. I think it may be more from media, and Georgia media specifically. And why would you go out there and expose yourself if you're already considered the fourth best quarterback, because you're not jumping those three, the three in front of you? And I don't know what happened at Georgia, but it didn't shock me. The timing of it was a little weird that it happened right after their first scrimmage, though.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of wondering, like, okay, what happened in that scrimmage? Was he not the guy? Was that, I mean, what? Because if you're going to opt out, you probably should have opted out 2 weeks ago and given somebody else those reps. So I don't know what happened at the scrimmage, or if the scrimmage had anything to do with it, or what it was, but it didn't shock me, is what I'm getting to. As far as the competition in Georgia, I think it's one of the more intriguing competitions that I've seen. And Carson Beck is a guy that I trained who's at Georgia, so I may be a little slanted, but I was thinking about this over the weekend. They've got this amazing defense, probably the best defense in the country. They've got JT Daniels, who got hurt the first game of the last year. They got DeJuan Mathis, who's coming off of a brain surgery and didn't play at all last year. And they've got Carson Beck. And so the true freshman has actually played football more recently than the other two.
Oh yeah.
The true freshman has seen live snaps, be it at the high school level, way more live snaps in the last year and a half than either of the other two. And so it's one of those things. It's like, what are you going to settle into if you are Kirby Smart and you know that what you need out of the quarterback position is the ability to push the ball down the field and not make mistakes, and probably flip that order, not make mistakes and then push the ball down the field, because your defense is that solid and your offensive line is pretty damn good and your running back position is pretty damn good, like it always is. That's an interesting decision they've got to make at Georgia. The good thing for them is their first game is they get to figure it out, as they're playing a team that hasn't won a game in 2 years in the SEC. So they are kind of playing that gimme game. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. I think Georgia's a top 5 team regardless of who they start at quarterback. In my heart of hearts, I think it's either going to be JT or Carson, and I think you'll see DeJuan Mathis come in packages, and that kid is a special athlete, by the way, so he'll be dangerous in those packages. But it is definitely intriguing and interesting with what's going on in Athens.
And then quickly, how much does that offense change under Todd Monken?
A lot. I think it changes a lot. I think Monken is very good at what he does. Very similar thing to what you see on Sundays in the NFL. Let's get rid of the ball quickly. Let's know where we're going with it. Let's get the read. And by the way, they may have the best receiver in the country. That's the scary thing. I mean, they've got a guy that in Pickens that is so dynamic that if you find creative ways to get the ball in his hand quickly, he could be a nightmare. So I think not that I had anything against Coley. I actually like Coley as a person, but I think Monken was a fantastic hire for what they have with that NFL type system they have with the offensive line, the NFL type running backs they have. He's going to be very hard to defend in the SEC.
And Denny, last thing came out kind of over the weekend. You mentioned Jamie Newman and his draft status, but Kyle Trask getting a little bit of NFL draft love with a good season. Maybe a season we're kind of predicted to have. Can he shoot his way up the draft board?
Yeah, absolutely. He's gonna. People are gonna love him in the process. He's gonna be a great combine guy. He's gonna be a great pro day guy. He's gonna be a great interview. He's gonna check all the boxes. He's what is Kyle? 6'5", probably 230, 235. Not the strongest arm in the world, but not an arm that's going to generate questions. So I think if he has a good year, the off season following that good year is going to do nothing but help him out. The real question is, does he leave with the extra year? I mean, that's the weird thing that we all got to wrap our head around is week 6 or 7. That's going to be the conversation. Is Kyle going to come back or is Kyle going to leave? So, I think he could work his way up. I don't think Kyle is a first-round guy, and I don't really know that he's a second-round guy, but he could be a third-round type quarterback.
It's already weird when Dan Mullen was hired. I never would have said a Jim McElwain quarterback would be the starting quarterback in year 3. It would be even more weird if we were saying it and going into year 4.
It would be. But, man, you already know it's going to be a topic.
Yeah. Oh, man. I couldn't imagine another year of quarterback debate.
Well, it should be a fun year, though. So hopefully it goes as we all plan. Hopefully they stay healthy. I think that's the number one thing Gator fans need right now is there's certain positions they've got a little bit of depth in, but most they don't. And so if they can stay healthy, it should be an exciting year in Gainesville.
All right. That is Denny Thompson, quarterback trainer and owner of 6 Points Jack's Quarterback Training and co-host of the Sports Den on 1010 XL here in Jacksonville with James Coleman. If you can't catch it on the radio here in Jacksonville, you can certainly stream it. Denny, man, I can't thank you enough for all your insight, man.
No, I appreciate it, man. Love doing this.
All right, that'll do it for this episode of Gators Breakdown. Once again, thanks to Denny Thompson and everything that he brings to the table when he's here on Gators Breakdown. Got to get him on more. He knows a lot, and especially with Anthony Richardson coming up in future years. We'll definitely keep in touch with Denny as he can share a lot of insight on being able to train Anthony Richardson and then kind of see his growth as a Florida Gator, hopefully in years to come there. Good look back at the second scrimmage, and thanks again to MyBookie, our sponsors here on Gators Breakdown. And that'll do it for this episode. Guys and girls, you can follow me on Twitter at GatorDave_SEC. Thanks for listening to this episode of Gators Breakdown.